Peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? I wonder if my struggles are common struggles amongst everyone else. I fight the urge, especially as I'm reading through the book of Exodus, to just parrot what I've heard, to parrot some belief system, or to parrot some idea about the verses in the book of Exodus that I've heard from someone else. And the only reason I fight the urge to parrot those things is not even necessarily because they're wrong, because I don't know. I can't verify these things. These are not things that I necessarily have a great grasp on. It's been a struggle through this book. When I was going through the book of Genesis, it was slightly easier because there's things that I'd heard that when I dug into the book of Genesis, I'm like, all right, this actually checks out. But with the book of Exodus, it's a little different. I cannot say that I've actually listened to many messages or sermons, and I've not read many books on the book of Exodus. So I'm probably going to do that and try to get a better understanding, because there's a lot in here that really just seems mundane. We're going to get into some more of that today. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. I think sometimes, and I've said this in a previous podcast, I'm going to repeat myself. Forgive me for those who get annoyed at me repeating myself. I understand that my listeners are not, what's the word I'm looking for? My listeners are not static. I don't always have the same listeners. You can check your podcast metrics, and when I check my metrics, some episodes I get people listening from, different countries. Some episodes I get 4 listeners, some 10. It just varies. So I know that the same people are not always listening. And so when I repeat certain things, you know why, because I'm actually looking at my metrics and seeing who's listening. Anyway, when going through the book of Exodus, I realized that I definitely want to read some more commentaries just to maybe jog my brain a little bit. Sometimes you need help. There's things I read where I read and I cross-reference and I might notice something or pick something up. And then there's other times where I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Let me see what somebody else has to say about this. Anyway, the book of Exodus, chapter 39. Let's get into this. And of blue and purple and scarlet, they made clothes of service to do service in the holy place, and made the holy garments for Aaron as the Lord commanded Moses. So now they went from making the things concerning the tabernacle and the ark and the altar and the different utensils and the tent, everything, concerning the tabernacle they were making. And now it's going into detail of making the priestly garments. In verse 2, and he made the ephod of blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. And I went over what an ephod was a while ago, I want to say, and I don't know, I don't know who remembers or who doesn't. So I'm going to read the definition. I use the Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary because I use the King James Bible, and there's a lot of Old English words that are not used now, and you get more close to the definitions used at the time if you use a Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary. So that's why I use it. And I mean, there's a lot of other words that have changed, definitions have changed over time. And it's an interesting case study. If you ever want to do that, go pick up a Noah Webster's 1828. There's an app, at least on Apple devices, on the App Store that you can get for it. I'm sure on Androids as well. Interesting. Anyway, ephod. In Jewish antiquity, a part of sacerdotal habit, being a kind of girdle which was brought from behind the neck over the two shoulders and hanging down before, was put across the stomach, then carried round the waist and used as a girdle to the tunic. There was two sorts, one of plain linen and the other embroidered for the high priest. On the part in front were two precious stones, one which were engraved the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. Before the breast was a square piece or breastplate. So, in case you were wondering what the ephod is, that is what this is. And he made the ephod of gold, blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. And they did beat the gold into thin plates and cut it into wires to work it in the blue and in the purple and in the scarlet and in the fine linen with cunning work. They made shoulder pieces for it. To couple it together by the two edges was it coupled together. And the curious girdle of his ephod there was upon it was of the same, according to the work thereof, of gold, blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they wrought onyx stones enclosed in ouches of gold, graven as signets are graven, with the names of the children of Israel. And he put them on the shoulders of the ephod, that they made should be stones for a memorial to the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he made the breastplate of cunning work, like the work of the ephod of gold, blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. It was foursquare. They made the breastplate double. A span was the length thereof, and a span the breadth thereof, being doubled. And they set in it 4 rows of stones. The first row was a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This was the first row. And the second row, an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row, a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row, a beryl, an onyx, and jasper. They were enclosed in ouches of gold in their enclosings. And the stones were according to the names of the children of Israel, 12, according to their names, like the engravings of the signet, every one with his name according to the 12 tribes. And they made upon the breastplate chains at the ends of wreathen work of pure gold. And they made 2 ouches of gold and 2 golden rings, and put the 2 rings in the 2 ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 wreathen chains of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And the 2 ends of the 2 wreathen chains they fastened in the 2 ouches, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And they made 2 rings of gold, and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate upon the border of it, which was on the side of the ephod inward. And they made 2 other golden rings and put them on the 2 sides of the ephod underneath toward the forepart of it, over against the other coupling thereof, above the curious girdle of the ephod. And they did bind the breastplate by his rings unto the rings of the ephod with a lace of blue, that it might be above the curious girdle of the ephod, and the breastplate might not be loosed from the ephod, as the Lord commanded Moses. And he made the rod of the ephod of woven work, all of blue, and there was an hole in the midst of the robe, as the hold of the harbigin. Oh no, forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Habergin, I guess how you pronounce it. With a band round about a hole, that it should not rend. Now I'm gonna look this word up, because as I always say, when I don't know what something is, I look it up. And I've looked this up before. It just shows you. See, I'm not like most people. I don't have a photographic memory, right? So the last time I went through the book of Exodus, it was a while ago, and I don't remember what this is. All right, so habergeon, a coat of mail or armor to defend the neck and breast. It was formed of little iron rings, united and descended from the neck to the middle of the body. Boom. So thus you have it. Where was I at? Blah, blah, blah. That was verse 23, verse 24. And they made upon the hems of the robe pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet and twined linen. And they made bells of pure gold, and put the bells between the pomegranates upon the hem of the robe, round about between the pomegranates, a bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, round about the hem of the robe, to minister in, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they made coats of fine linen of woven work for Aaron and for his sons, and a mitre of fine linen, and goodly bonnets of fine linen, and linen breeches of fine twine linen, and a girdle of fine twine linen, a blue and purple and scarlet of needlework, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and wore upon it writing, like the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord. And they tied into it a lace of blue, to fasten it on high upon the mitre, as the Lord commanded Moses. Thus was all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation finished, and the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so did they. Kind of a big thought. Maybe not necessarily directly related to all of this, but in a way it is. God is very interested in what we would think are minor specific details. And the way he laid out the construction of the tabernacle and the priestly garments, it actually shows me that the things we think God is not paying attention to, he is definitely involved down to the very detail. Like I said, kind of related, not necessarily the focus of what's going on here, but just my observation. Where is I at? I was on verse 33. And they brought the tabernacle unto Moses, the tent and all his furniture, his taches, his boards, his bars, and his pillars, and his sockets, and the covering of ram skin dyed red, and the covering of badger skin, and the veil of the covering. Interesting that ram skin covering was dyed red. The ark of the testimony, and the staves thereof, and the mercy seat, the table, and all the vessels thereof, and the shewbread, the pure candlestick with the lamps thereof, even with the lamps to be set in order, and all the vessels thereof, and the oil for a light, and the golden altar, and the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, and the hanging for the tabernacle door, the brassen altar, and his grate of brass, his staves, and all his vessels, the laver and his foot, the hangings of the court, his pillars and his sockets, the hanging of the court gate, his cords and his pins, and all the vessels of service of the tabernacle for the tent of the congregation, the clothes of service to do service in the holy place, and the garments of Aaron the priest and his sons' garments to minister in the priest office, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So the children of Israel made all the work. And Moses did look upon all the work, and behold, they had done it as the Lord had commanded. Even so had they done it, and Moses blessed them. And this finishes the construction of the tabernacle and the making of the priestly garments and the ark. I'm going to tell you something that's kind of a side note and is a matter of interest to me. And it is actually a matter of interest to many people. And that is the Ark of the Covenant. The interesting thing about the Ark of the Covenant is if you follow the theme of the Bible, if you follow the Bible all the way through, at some point you just kind of lose track of it. Now you can get it down to the point at where you lose track, right? So you can kind of cordon that off. The interesting thing, and these are things that really interest me, and I probably watch way too many videos and read way too much about this stuff because it's kind of not relevant. It doesn't really matter, but it's intriguing. Where is the ark? What happened to it? It's almost as though it just vanished. And there's been many historians, many world leaders, and many people, especially in that Middle Eastern region, in that whole area, that have looked and searched and dug and went on quests trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. I don't know. There's a lot of theories about it. Ron Wyatt, the archaeologist, well, he really wasn't an archaeologist, but God, it appears that God used him to uncover some biblical archaeology. Now, as I said before, you may agree or disagree with Mr. Wyatt. You might disagree with his findings, what he thought about a lot of these things, but he had something to say about the Ark of the Covenant. It's very interesting. I'm not saying that his story is true, and I'm not saying that it's false, but I will say it's interesting, worth looking into. But that's just something that intrigues me as I read through my Bible. Anyway, as I always say, y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.